In the heart of Central Africa, where dense rainforests stretch for miles and the Sunga River flows endlessly, a ruler once reigned with unchecked power, unimaginable wealth, and terrifying brutality. His name was Jean-Bédel Bokassa, a soldier-turned-president-turned-emperor who led the Central African Republic, CAR, from 1966 to 1979. But among his many excesses, his self-coronation as emperor, his golden throne, and his infamous brutality, one scandal stood out as a symbol of greed, corruption, and the suffering of innocent children: the school uniform scandal. Jean-Bédel Bokassa was once a decorated military officer in the French army, serving in Vietnam and Algeria. When he returned to CAR, he staged a coup in 1966, overthrowing his cousin, David Dacko, and declaring himself president for life. But his hunger for power was insatiable. In 1976, he crowned himself Emperor Bokassa I, in an extravagant ceremony modeled after Napoleon Bonaparte, costing the struggling nation an estimated $20 million, money that could have fed his starving people. While Bokassa's rule was marked by extreme opulence and cruelty, it was his wife, Marie-Reine Bokassa, who played a central role in the scandal that would ultimately bring down his regime. Marie-Reine Bokassa was not just the first lady, she was a powerful businesswoman who controlled major trade in the country. In the late 1970s, the Bokassa regime mandated that all schoolchildren wear a government-approved uniform. This policy may have seemed ordinary, but there was a sinister twist. The exclusive rights to sell the school uniforms were handed to Marie-Reine Bokassa's company. Parents were forced to buy these overpriced uniforms, even though many families in CAR lived in extreme poverty and could barely afford food. Those who couldn't purchase the uniforms were denied education. The people were outraged. Protests erupted in schools across the nation as students refused to wear the uniforms and demanded justice. But instead of compassion, the students were met with a terrifying response. On April 18, 1979, tensions boiled over. Hundreds of schoolchildren gathered to protest in the streets of Bangui, demanding the right to education without exploitation. Bokassa, furious at being defied, unleashed his security forces on the young protesters. The children were arrested, beaten, and taken to Ngaragba prison, a notorious facility known for torture and death. What happened next remains one of the most horrifying events in African history. Eyewitness accounts claim that Bokassa himself oversaw the punishment. Some reports even allege that he participated in the execution of schoolchildren, ordering his guards to beat them to death. The exact number of victims remains unknown, but estimates suggest that over 100 children were massacred that day. For years, France had backed Bokassa, tolerating his brutality and excesses in exchange for access to CAR's uranium, diamonds, and other resources. But the school uniform massacre was too much. Global media exposed the atrocity, and pressure mounted on French President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing to intervene. In September 1979, while Bokassa was on a trip to Libya, France launched Operation Barracuda, a coup that swiftly removed him from power. His old rival, David Dacko, was reinstated as president, and Bokassa was left to wander in exile. After spending years in Ivory Coast and later France, where he lived in a chateau, Bokassa did the unthinkable. He returned to CAR in 1986, believing that his people would welcome him back. Instead, he was immediately arrested, charged with murder, treason, and cannibalism, though the cannibalism charge was later dropped due to lack of evidence. He was sentenced to death, but this was later reduced to life in prison, and eventually, he was pardoned in 1993. He lived out his final years in obscurity, dying in 1996. Marie-Reine, once a first lady of immense power, vanished from the political scene after her husband's fall. Though her involvement in the school uniform scandal was undeniable, she avoided the same fate as her husband. She lived a quiet, private life, far from the grandeur she once enjoyed. The school uniform scandal remains one of the most shameful and tragic episodes of Bokassa's rule. It was not just a story of corruption, it was a story of innocent children whose lives were lost because of greed. Today, the massacre is etched into the history of CR, a reminder of the danger of absolute power, unchecked ambition, and the devastating cost of tyranny. Jean-Bédel Bokassa's reign is a lesson in how dictatorship, greed, and corruption can destroy a nation. His downfall came not from war or rebellion, but from the cries of schoolchildren demanding their rights, a powerful reminder that even the most ruthless rulers cannot silence justice forever.